In 1966, the television series Star Trek aired on NBC, only to be cancelled after 3 seasons due to low ratings and disinterest from the network. But then a funny thing happened. In syndication, the show was immensely popular, and when NBC updated the Nielsen ratings and looked back at Star Trek's original run, they realized they had killed a golden goose. They had to figure out a way to bring it back, even though they had already thrown out all the sets. The answer was an animated series, and the result was something that stands out among the crop of 1970s animated series. You hear about a Star Trek Saturday morning cartoon made in 1973 by Filmation, and the immediate reaction will probably be that it was a cheap cash-in with lousy writing and a dumbing down of the source material. And while it was indeed cheap, it was also good. Really good. I think it arguably might be the best animated series of the 1970s. The main reason comes down to the fact that they hired a lot of the same writers who worked on the original series, including former Star Trek story editor Dorothy Fontana. And even though this was a cartoon and the episodes were half the length, they still treated the scripts with the same care with which they handled the live-action series. The scripts were kept intelligent with that familiar Star Trek touch, never being dumbed down like so many cartoons during that decade. One can easily imagine these scripts, if expanded, being used on the original series. Star Trek the Animated Series also brought back a lot of the same cast as the original series, mostly due to Leonard Nimoy's insistence. So we got to see Captain Kirk, Spock, Dr. McCoy, Scotty, Uhura, Sulu, Chekhov, that's not Chekhov. Yep, Walter Koenig was the only principal actor not to reprise his role, although he did write one of the episodes. Nonetheless, the characters were still how we remember them. The classic barbs shared between Spock and McCoy remained, as did Kirk's charm. There was a familiarity coming aboard the Enterprise again, and the animated series captured that marvelously. One refreshing aspect of the animated series was it returning to places and locations previously seen on the original series. After the crew left certain planets, it was always ambiguous what would happen to them. However, one animated series episode returned to the Shoreleaf planet, and the series also gave us an update on what happened to Cyrano Jones and the Tribbles, in an episode written by David Gerrold, the man who wrote The Trouble with Tribbles. In the episode Yesteryear, Kirk and Spock meet the Guardian of Forever from the City on the Edge of Forever, and Spock actually has to go back in time to his days as a young Vulcan. This one is notable in that it's become an accepted part of Spock's childhood and would influence a couple of scenes in the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek film. We never did find out what happened to Khan on Ceti Alpha 5. Well, maybe they could make a movie about that instead. The animated series continued the intelligent theme of optimism that made the original series resonate with so many. The episodes followed pretty closely the formula established in the live-action show, and it also gives some other characters a chance to shine. In one episode, where the male crew members become unfit for duty thanks to a planet full of siren-like women, Uhura steps up to the captain's chair and gets a lot more to do in this story than she ever did in the original series. There's one episode where Kirk does not even appear, thus giving other crew members more screen time without their captain hogging the spotlight. The animated series even explored topics Gene Roddenberry would not allow in the original series, like an episode where the crew has to stop a religious war from breaking out. As well written as the scripts were, it does not change how cheap the animation was. This is Filmation we're talking about, a studio that made Hanna-Barbera look like Disney by comparison. The animation is stilted, with the cost-cutting causing as minimal movement as possible. There was also the odd directorial decision wherein characters were constantly given extreme close-ups. The continuity errors are fairly noticeable too. In one episode, Spock gets kidnapped by an alien being, but then when we cut back to the ship, he's in his usual position on the bridge. James Doohan, Majel Barrett, and Nichelle Nichols also voiced some of the supporting characters on the animated series, and while Doohan was versatile, you did end up with a lot of the female characters sounding like Nurse Chapel and Lieutenant Uhura. However, the animation also worked to the series' advantage. Due to the budget on the live-action Star Trek series, they could not depict as many alien species as they wanted. Yeah, for a series about seeking out new life and new civilizations, boldly going where no man has gone before, a lot of the planets and aliens they met sure looked a lot like themselves, like the episode The Chicago Gangsters, the one with the Native Americans, and even one with Nazis for some reason. Okay, I have no idea what the Star Trek writers were on when they wrote that one. That was a really strange episode. Even the Klingons, long before the motion picture gave them ridges, were just spray-tan people, and the Romulans were basically Vulcans with scruffier eyebrows. I love the original series, but they were pretty limited with what they could do. In the animated series, we got to see more aliens working on the Enterprise bridge, including the three-armed, long-necked Arax and the Catwoman Maress. They also met a wide variety of alien beings on the animated series, with abilities that would have been difficult to portray on the original series' special effects budget. There was even an episode taking place mostly underwater, which would have definitely been difficult to accomplish on the live-action show. And the holodeck, so popular on Star Trek The Next Generation, made its first appearance in the animated series. It's a credit to the writers that they took advantage of the freed restraints that come with working animation, but they never went too far and took the series and characters into ridiculous territory. That aforementioned underwater episode involved Kirk and Spock turning into fish people, which sounds stupid when I describe it to you, but in the series it worked. There have been a lot of discussions within Trek circles on the canon of the animated series, but I think it deserves to be considered part of the Enterprise's 5-year mission. It's basically a bonus 4th season of the show, and I would argue I even like it more than the 3rd season of the original series. Despite the cheapness of its animation, Star Trek the Animated Series upheld what Gene Roddenberry sought to do with the series and deserves to be considered a part of its legacy. See you next time.